and Baba has a very special place in my heart. I've been to India to worship and meditate on Baba and his life, and the book's really inspired by Meher Baba and Pasni. But before we get into the book and the reading, I thought it could be interesting to do some music. So we were talking about my friendship with my good friend Bob Fredericks, and he's done a lot of really cool art, music, and films over the years. And I've had some music and some of those pieces of art. So I thought I would share some of those. Might be a good way to start the program. So this first song is called the Creation Song. And this is inspired by God Speaks, and kind of taking into, I think, account the theme of creation. Stone, metal, vegetable, worm, bird, animal. Stone, metal, vegetable, worm, bird, stone, metal, vegetable, worm, bird, animal. And then the human being. And then the human being. And then the human being. Man, woman, India, woman, man, America. Man, woman, India, woman, man, America. Man, woman, India, woman, man, America. And then the wheel turns. And then the wheel turns. And then the wheel turns. Rich, poor president, poor rich servant. Rich, poor president, poor rich servants. Rich, poor president, poor rich servants. And then the inner path. And then the inner path. And then the inner path. Gross subtle mind planes, fifth, sixth, emptiness. Gross subtle mind planes, fifth, sixth, emptiness. Gross subtle mind planes, fifth, sixth, emptiness. And then it's got alone. And then it's got alone. And then it's got alone. Stone, metal, vegetable, worm, bird, animal. Stone, metal, vegetable, worm, bird, animal. Stone, metal, vegetable, worm, bird, animal. Then the human being. Then the human being. Then the human being. Rich poor president, poor servants. Rich poor president, poor servants. They need a path. They need a path. They need a path. Rose little man plays fifth, sixth, nothing else. Rose little man plays fifth, sixth, nothing else. Rose little man plays fifth, sixth, nothing else. Then it's got alone. Then it's got alone. Then it's got alone.
Wow, nice.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's the, I don't know where, it was after reading the whole, anyone that's read God Speaks, that whole first, I think 50 pages, so it's like this whole layout of the transmigration of the soul, and it spoke to me emotionally.
Were you able to get through it? I haven't even gotten all the way through it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I you know, the thing with Baba is when I got turned on to Baba, there was no stopping. As soon as I got into it, it was like I burned through the discourses, burned through. At that time, too, I think I had a copy of Infinite Intelligence, too. It was like before it was actually published, and just
Wow.
couldn't get enough, I think, information.
Well, that's inspiring for me.
It was inspiring. Yeah, I mean, it's the, fascinating. So this one is from Bees of May, the Upasni film. So this is just Zero. That's the name of the song.
Zero.
There ain't no song to play. There ain't no words, no melody. And there ain't no wine and booze. There ain't no bars, no chips or blues. There ain't no roads out west. There ain't no bridges, no tolls, no tests. There ain't no cars and trains. There ain't no tanks, no aeroplanes. There ain't no cable TV. There ain't no shows and no big screen. There ain't no death and rain. There ain't no prisons and no probate. There ain't no royal stress. There ain't no nicotine, no depress. And there ain't no walls between. There ain't no bills, no halls, no beams. 'Cause it's all just life, living consciousness. Yeah, it's all just life, living consciousness. There ain't no church and state. There ain't no money, no big payday. There ain't no jobs or trades. There ain't no schools to educate. There ain't no vanity, there ain't no Playboy magazine. There ain't no notes to take, there ain't no schedule to keep, no fate. 'Cause it's all just life, living consciousness. all just life, a living consciousness. There ain't no oceans or lakes, there ain't no storms and no earthquakes. There ain't no big typhoons, there ain't no broken homes, no ruins. There ain't no good and bad, there ain't no happy, no numb, no sad. There ain't no fool here singing, there ain't no song and no one's playing. 'Cause it's all just life, a living consciousness. 'Cause it's all just life, a living consciousness. Yeah, it's all just life, living this consciousness. Yeah, it's all just life, living consciousness. So interesting thing is, I don't know if anyone's seen the new Mark Wahlberg movie, Father Stu. Has anyone seen it? It's awesome. I mean, it's a really good story. It's a true story about a guy that grew up sort of rough and tumble, who decides it's somewhere along his path becomes a Catholic priest. It's a great movie. Story of just adversity, transformation, and just this spiritual process that's happening with his father Stu. But he says something in the movie that makes me think of this song and some of the things that Upasani Maharaj would say. And the one thing he says in the movie that is just so powerful to me is he says in the movie that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Mm-hmm. And it's such a twist on words, but it's such a powerful way of really looking at life, because I think we're so caught up in the day-to-day. You know, it's so easy to be caught up in all that. Mm-hmm. And I was watching the movie, I was just like, wow, it just blew me away.
What's it called?
Father Stu.
STU, Father Stu?
Father Stu, yeah.
It came out what, last year?
Just came out like
Father
last
Stu.
month.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Mark Wahlberg's new movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really good. So Bosnia talked a lot about that, and
Yeah.
I think sometimes in deep meditation you can start to feel and tap into that.
Yeah.
And you don't get so lost in the object relations and all the dramatic things I think that are happening in your day-to-day life. So another thing Bob also said is that part of what God's doing in this world is bringing all the religions of the world together like beads on one string. I always love that message too, really getting the heart of everything, that divinity is within all these things. We really are truly brothers and sisters in this world. And this song's inspired by that message, and it's called "The Light of the Soul." First line. I literally just forgot the first line. Oh, here we go. All right.
Stage fright.
Born into a body, when the body is gone, the light of the soul is on. Take a look inside, a look inside yourself. The light of the soul can be felt. Don't worry about why. Don't worry about how. The light of the soul here now. Don't worry about the past. Stop thinking, what will I do? The light of the soul inside you. There are those who are living, and there are those who have died. The light of the soul here tonight. There are Muslims and Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, and you. The light of the soul is the truth. 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 Forgot that first line.
It happens. Spotlight.
Sitting there strumming, I'm like, I know it's going to come to me. I know it's gonna come to me. No.
I just thought it was an instrumental.
Yeah.
It was close. It was really close to being just that. So this This is a song that I did for the Upasny film, Be As It May, and it didn't make it in the film, but I like the song.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
Bobby
too
actually,
bad.
it was interesting too. He made there was an actual like music video for it. It just didn't make it
Oh,
into the
right.
final cut.
Yeah, you
That
have,
must
it
be
was
the
in.
Be As It May not.
Yeah, there you go. Be As It May Not. That's the new and improved title. Approach the doorway in your mind and leave all the rest behind. This green world has nothing. Color with morning green. Can you see that you're dying? Or even suspect that it's a blessing? Do you keep your eyes on signs? Or do you look and you watch for time? And the gold is in your pocket, just like you wanted it to be. But it don't mean nothing to me. Turn your attention inside and swim in the formless sublime. Just what do you think you'll miss here? Maybe him, maybe her, maybe fear. And she's sleeping in your bed, just like you wanted her to be. But it don't mean nothing to me. I once saw an eagle fly away, well beyond the forest and rain, moving on to a new land. And I can't recall if it looked back As Upasni, you know, it's like, so for those who don't know who Upasni Maharaj is, his name literally translates to the master of austerities. So he was, you know, that, I guess, Indian cloth of suffering being the thing that really takes you into a different, totally different experience. But that different experience is the divine experience of infinite bliss. So even though he would talk a lot about suffering and the place of suffering in human life, you know, he also talked about and Baba talked about that too. On the other end is the infinite, divine bliss. So.
Goes with the territory.
Right, I guess. So our one final song, I guess, until I get into, and then we'll jump into the readings. And this wasn't from a movie that Bob did, but it was one of the videos he did, This Passing Dream. That's another thing too. Again, in our day-to-day life, we're focused on. It's important that we stay focused on taking care of our families, you know, doing the important work that we're doing in this life. But in those quiet moments, when you think about it, we all know that the life that we have is a start and a finish, you know, and to meditate on that. The spiritual part of what that means is, I don't know, places where I go, certainly in meditation, with art and music sometimes. And, yeah, so this song is it's just a pure devotional song to Baba and his messages. And this is one too. I remember when I wrote this song. It was I think before my kids were born, but it was definitely the middle of the night. I woke up and I could just sort of hear the tune playing.
Wow.
It's an interesting one, yeah. Passing dream, waking up humanity in this passing dream. Sinners and saints are in this passing dream, good and bad intermingling in this passing dream. Skyscrapers, airplanes in this passing dream, billions of human beings in this passing dream. Doctors and lawyers in this passing dream, prostitutes and murderers in this passing dream. God in me, Baba in this passing dream, waking up humanity in this passing dream. Baseball and soccer in this passing dream, missiles and battlefields in this passing dream. Ice cream and bubble gum in this passing dream, cigarettes and whiskey in this passing dream. Music and movies in this passing dream, tabloids and the media in this passing dream. God is me, Baba in this passing dream, waking up humanity in this passing dream. Minds are racing in this passing dream, waiting for an intervention in this passing dream. It's the Kali Yuga in this passing dream, iron and machinery in this passing dream. When God breaks the silence in this passing dream, a spiritual upheaval in this passing dream. passing dream, waking up humanity in this passing dream. When God breaks the silence in this passing dream, a spiritual upheaval in this passing dream. I guess that's the end of the music portion.
Good one to end on. Nice. Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's not Elvis. We were just here yesterday at AMC watching Elvis, and I got to tell you, I was blown. I don't know if anyone else has seen it. I was blown away by it. I thought
Is that another movie that came out? What is that?
It's literally about Elvis. It's
A movie, though.
Yeah. Baz Luhrmann just did it.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Was it good?
I thought it was great.
I was crying at the end.
Yeah, it was good. So I know that wasn't Elvis, but
Close enough.
yeah. I hope that's acceptable.
I liked it.
Thank you. So, I picked out a couple of readings. So the book Colin Hartley Woke Up just came out this past week. I probably have all the hard copy books sitting on my porch right now. I was hoping to actually bring some hard copy books to this, but it's the way that this trip worked out. It was sort of, I just accept I'm going to be, this is a different venue for me. I'm a clinical social worker by trade. Just spent the last 16 years as a director of operations at a place called Wesley Family Services. I'm going to be the chief program officer for the Children's Institute of Pittsburgh starting July 18th. So I thought I would thread a vacation in between the two jobs, simultaneously just landed around the time of the book. And I reached out to my good friend Bob to see if I could arrange, what we're doing right now. And, thanks again for having me. So Colin Hartley Woke Up. And so this is a project that I started almost 20 years ago. It started as an outline and just kind of thoughts related to Bob's new life. And thinking, envisioning, I think, and being inspired by Bob's messages in the new life. And then thinking about what would that actually look like for a modern day, say, ascetic. And it started inspiring me. I was envisioning sort of this almost modern day Buddhist monk living in Chicago that is walking amongst normal average people, but going through this very profound spiritual enlightenment and very personal awakening to God. So that's the basic, I think, central force in the story. So, and as Colin's going through this, as he's going through this awakening process, he's also simultaneously losing everything. Everything in his life is literally starting to vanish and dissolve. So he's both, in the beginning at least, excited about it, because for him this is a sure sign that this profound awakening is happening, but at the same time he's losing everything, all of his comforts, everything that he's used to. So he's not on solid footing anymore. And as this is happening, he's having these exchanges with what would be sort of his guru, I guess. The mysterious William Green is this character that he has breakfast with every morning. He has coffee with Willie Green. And in the story, every single exchange that Colin has with everybody in the world, whether it's somebody just passing the street, is this deep sort of spiritual exchange. So the book, I think, envisions what that would be like an actual world where every maybe sort of moment in exchange almost is related to that more divine picture. It makes me wonder, was there ever a world like that? Like you think in a monastery, probably, right? People are walking by each other. It's always this meditation on God, and this exchange is always about this spiritual awakening. But in a modern context, how does that happen? Upasani and Baba both talked about that too. You don't have to go crawl in a cave somewhere to be able to go through that process. So I think that was also part of what inspired it. So the first reading I have is from the first chapter, and this is while Colin is sitting down with Willie, having coffee, kind of talking about these deeper truths of life, I guess. So Willie adjusted his Chicago Bulls cap and then continued. You want to wake up, Colin, or you wouldn't be sitting here with me right now. You desire to get past the stale fogginess that is your perception of life. You want to experience what is real, and you want to be conscious of the truth. You want an end to machine life, and you want an end to the monotony. But most important, you also feel drawn to the idea of a merger with the pure illumination of love, soul love. Life was not created for the soul to remain stagnant and satisfied with dreaming and machining alone. It is designed for the realization of the highest. Colin chuckled to himself out of surprise. He had never heard the mysterious William Green talk about love, and this took him off guard. He thought about making a joke of it for a second, but then he held his tongue. Colin remained silent, and his quiet was the simple result of Willie's heartfelt expression. Have you ever lost anything, Colin Hartley? Asked Willie. Has anything ever been taken away from you? This question took Colin by surprise. It seemed like a silly question to be asked. Obviously, he had lost things. He and Willie had been friends for a few years now. They knew many details of each other's lives, intimate details. For instance, Willie knew that Colin's parents were deceased, and that he was estranged from his family. He knew that Colin had lost friends, girlfriends, jobs, money, and property. In fact, loss was a big part of Colin Hartley's life. He had little money, virtually no connection or close friends, and he had few belongings. You could even say that his losses were the reason he embarked on the path of enlightenment. This was the reason he befriended Willie and had talks about subjects like awakening, soul experience, and divine truth. Colin said, "You know all of my losses, Willie. You know that is a big part of my life. I've lost just about everything." "Well, not quite everything," Willie sharply retorted. "You know, the Avatar of the Age said that God helps the seeker by taking away everything in his path to the eternal ocean of love. He clears the path when the aspirant is ready. When someone has the desire to wake up from the worldly life of gross objects, then those things begin to disappear. The meaning of that dream fades away, and the real experience of infinite divine bliss starts to take over." "So all of my losses are part of my awakening?" asked Colin. Willie replied, "Maybe it is better to see it as the infinite removing the barriers to your highest self. And that way, loss is really not loss. If you look at it that way, then it is really gain. You gain your real self. Then you see that the compassionate Father is leading you to the most beautiful soul experience when you really want that experience." Then Willie smiled slyly and said, "Maybe the compassionate Father will remove more barriers on your path. To awaken from this dream," said Willie, "we must have the courage to sense our own suffering, to accept the importance of suffering, to see suffering as a symptom of transcendence, and accept that we are dreaming. The journey of waking up is a long and difficult road. It is an epic adventure that can happen in our everyday mundane existence. We have to sense this with every cell of our being. Only then can we be interested in something else. Everything we've experienced up until this point has been all dreams and imagination. And remember that this sleep is appealing because, as you said, it makes us feel cozy and warm. I think it's hard to fathom what this sleep prevents us from becoming. However, with a wish, a desire to know what our possibilities are, and with the help of a good bicycle, of course, we might just pass into the unimaginable, the infinite." So, the bicycle, I guess I didn't explain. When Colin shows up to meet with Willie the first time, Willie's bicycle has been changed. Willie is probably of the Upasni school of suffering. So his bicycle seat's been replaced with a wooden block that's covered in sandpaper. His bicycle pedals are old Pepsi glass bottles, and where the water bottle goes is a salt shaker. So the symbolism beyond that, and again, that is really, I think, inspired by Upasni and trying to accentuate, I guess, the place that suffering holds. Not that any of us have to go looking for it. Right? Suffering is a natural thing that comes to our lot. But I think that with writing and with art and with music, I think that it's, at least for me, taking the liberty to be able to make that into something metaphorical was the point of that. So I'd be curious, any impressions, anything stand out, resonate, not resonate? Anybody? Be curious to hear feedback.
It resonates. I want to say it all resonates, because we're in the same tradition, and this is very familiar And that you put it so, so feelingly and relatable.
Recently, that in this process, you have this aspiration to feel God's presence or to feel God's love, and you're definitely on the road. But in the meantime, in addition to this suffering that you're talking about, the person loses interest in a lot of things in life that he was interested in before. Things that used to bring excitement and pleasure are kind of dull now.
Yeah.
And some claim that that might be bordering on the dark night of the soul, where
Right.
your old life is no longer interesting to you, or it's full of suffering and failure and defeat and everything else that makes it more difficult. But the new hasn't quite yet manifested itself in your life.
Just the pangs of it. I guess that's the beauty of being able to have, like, even if you don't have your own personal master, I guess that's the beauty of having the words to, I think of Rumi, I think of Bob, all those people that have been able to put Jesus, to be able to put that suffering in perspective. Because I think as you feel it, and you go through a change like that, where would we?
Many years ago, I was in Chicago, actually in Milwaukee. Anyway, I participated in what was called an Enlightenment Intensive, and it was a 3-day thing, and it went through the stages of the mind, where you're working on the question, who am I? And you contemplate, and then you communicate to your partner, and you switch over every 5 minutes for a 40-minute thing. And on this intensive, the veil does drop. And the experience of being off the intensive afterward was exactly seeing everything in normal life as divine. You know, it wasn't permanent, and Baba talks about this too. These things can happen, but there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it for me. So I definitely related to what you're talking about, because it changes. Having that experience of the veil dropping and seeing it, and seeing life from a whole different perspective. You know, what especially what others are and our relationships. It's like there's nothing like it. And unfortunately, and as Baba says in discourses, yeah, you can have these experiences, but mine is permanent and yours is,
Right.
you know, you go after it. And some techniques have worked really well for me in that regard. And I actually miss doing that. You know, it's an intentional thing that I've done, and it's still being done around the world, and it's getting pretty big, the Enlightenment Intensive, because it gives you a peek into it.
Yeah, when you was talking, I just had a flashback when I was in art school, before I went to school for social work. And I remember having a printmaking teacher, and we were doing these lithographs. And for printmaking lithographs, there's this big stone that you take to grind the face of the stone down before you do your next lithograph. And he's teaching the class how to do this thing. He's just grinding this stone down, and in the middle of nowhere, he just stops and he's like, "Isn't this so zen?" He starts talking, and he just keeps talking about it. And you know, I don't know if you know. But then it turned into this whole conversation about how anything can be Zen. Anything you can achieve that state of mind in just a normal, everyday experience in life. And as you were talking, I was thinking about that. I don't know why. I haven't thought of this printmaking culture in 20 years. There's something about the way you're explaining that made me think of that.
It's like wax on.
Yeah,
wax
exactly. Yeah, right. So I have 2 more readings. Bella, no questions?
I'd like to share something, if I may.
Okay.
Every Silence Day here, there's a fellow, Jeff Wolverton, who gives everybody a quote, a Mayor Baba quote. And so mine came today, but interestingly enough, I was meditating on this same subject, and I thought, well, isn't that curious, you know? This thing came today. And Bob was talking about meditation here. He says, just as a random thought can manifest force in the shape of a bodily action, So meditation, or deep and properly organized thinking, produces a force of its own, which is very useful to the spiritual aspirant. The manifestation of this force may not become evident immediately, or even in the short time, but meditation is surely eventually to bear fruit. I will help you with my love, that you can do this perfectly. So again, it's that lag period between doing the work and getting the fruits of the work, as it were.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So this section of the bike talks, I guess, a little bit about Willie's bicycle, maybe a little bit about that metaphor of suffering. Willie chuckled at this and replied, "Asking you shall receive, but don't think it's going to be easy. This is only the beginning. You have asked the compassionate Father to help you awaken, to help you transform. And you will, but only in good time, and only through the fire of transformation. Enjoy this excitement while it lasts. The Christmas hangover is just around the corner." Colin sipped his coffee as those last words played inside him like a tune. And it was then that Willie's bicycle caught his attention. Colin had not yet considered seriously what it must be like to ride that contraption. He could see by observing it that Willie would have to captain it just right. He would have to sit on it in just the right way, and he would have to be acutely aware of his surroundings while the bike was being directed. Willie could really get hurt if the bike was not driven cautiously. If, for instance, Willie hit a large bump on the road, his rear and his feet could really suffer. It seemed to Colin that any major impact would shatter the glass soda bottles, and then Willie's feet would become subject to injury. And the sandpaper on that newly constructed seating apparatus could turn his rear end into Swiss cheese if he had an accident. Needless to say, Colin was convinced that this new bicycle could only be directed with real attention and with incredible perception of one's surroundings. "Tell me the secret to riding that bike," asked Colin. Willie turned to look at the bike, and then he glanced back at Colin, saying, "That bike can only be driven perfectly. Anything less than perfection, and you'll sustain an injury." And again, the metaphor of the bike is it made me really, I think, quite a bit about Upasni Maharaj, because you read Upasni, and at times it's hard to imagine. I mean, for those who don't know, Upasni is literally saying you should actually, instead of asking for blessings and money and have your sufferings, you should actually ask for more suffering. Someone like me who's adverse to suffering, I see that, I'm inspired by it, I'm fascinated by it, because I think to myself, who asks for that? But it somehow strangely inspires me. There's something about, and I think it's because of the deeper place that he's coming from, what else he's communicating, because it tells me there's something else that's happening there. And trying to use, I guess, maybe a little bit of comedy, I guess, with the bike. So Willie goes on, "Anything less than perfection, you'll sustain an injury." Then Willie held his cup of coffee just below his mouth and continued. "The trick, however, is to ride the bike on terrain that is in accordance with your own skill level. For instance, my own skill level at this time involves riding only on sparsely traveled side roads and some parking lots. I walk the bike everywhere else. I can ride it perfectly when there's a little traffic and when there are a few hazards. That is my current skill level. When I become completely acclimated to this skill level, then I'll move to the next. At that point, I will begin the short stretches on Belmont again. You see, any mistake made on this bike has the potential for disaster, so I need foresight and where I'll be riding this thing." So again, really, that's something I think about quite a bit too, is like, where are we at on our own path? And am I staying focused on my current skill level? These are metaphors, but I think about that myself. Any thoughts, anything that...
When you say you've been reading Upasni Maharaj, what book or whatever?
The like 8-part selected talks.
Oh, okay. I have the biography, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've read the biography too. The biography's,
Yeah.
It's all incredible. The whole.
So there are books out there, 8 parts, called Selected Talks?
Yeah, the selected talks. Someone, he had several people that would gather around and just take notes as he was discoursing. And they bound them, and they just, I think 5 or 6 years ago, re-released them. The original ones I have are like falling apart. The bindings barely holds the book together. So I got some new ones that way I can keep the older ones where they're at.
Well,
We have a question.
Oh, here we go. All right.
How old is Willie?
Oh, how old's Willie? That's a good question. I'd say Willie's in his 60s, maybe.
Okay.
So a young fella.
Yeah, he's a young fella. Yeah. Just old enough to like have all this great wisdom in life, but still young and spry.
Okay.
Young to us, but old to you.
I'm saying like stay in your lane
Yeah.
can help with your peace.
Yeah.
Like, I have politics, right? I have a brother that always steps into every conversation as knowing he's going to be the winner, and so I strongly disagree, but it's not worth going there too often.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just stay in my lane. That's better for me.
Right.
Probably better for him.
Right. No. That's sage advice for sure.
Better for my parents in heaven.
I
saying,
bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brothers are tight.
It brings to mind for me too what you're talking about, when things go bad, especially maybe in relationships. You think, oh, something bad happened, but it's like, wait a minute, what is this? What am I learning from this? Insult, or if somebody doesn't like something or says something and it gets, it hits the ego, you know, and that's all, to me, intentional from Meher Baba. This is what's next, you know. That, and then it's easier to take a step back and experience some gratitude for being able to experience the suffering of things going wrong. You know, either when you're by yourself or when you're with other people. And your mind just goes crazy, like, you know, until you say, oh, this is the next thing that I'm being given. You know. So.
You know, where does the strength come from to do that?
Well, I
Some
know where
ways.
it comes from me,
Yeah.
because of the teachings that I'm trying to incorporate. You know, even if I don't feel like it, at least I've heard it, you know. And that takes the edge off quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it takes a while. You can take a day or two. To turn the other cheek kind of thing, as an example, you know. And it doesn't go my way.
So Willie elaborates further. The pedals of this bike have to be turned just right. I can sit on the seat only one way. All the time, the salt shaker stays on my mind. Too much force for my legs and feet and the glass will break. Too much leaning to the right or left and my butt will ache. The whole of each ride I'm parched with no water to drink, and that's why I constructed this thing. I'm riding it towards the living waters and will drink from them in good time. Colin paused for a few moments as Willie's words absorbed into his blood. Colin could actually feel Willie inside himself, even though his physical body remained seated opposite him. How long does it take to awaken? Colin asked. Willie, who seemed to be looking over Colin's head, replied, everything is waking up. That's all that is happening, waking up. Slowly over time, rocks wake into trees, wake into worms, wake into bees, wake into monkeys, wake into human beings. Most begin with glimpses, just little seconds where consciousness is heightened. And as you keep waking up, those glimpses will increase and turn into minutes. Then the minutes collect and turn into hours, and so on. And the way I understand it to be, when you fully awaken, time does not exist at all. Glimpses, minutes, hours, and days vanish. Time disappears. But this is not important now. Just words, and experiences of the awakened. So, and that goes throughout the book, is the obvious Colin Hartley woke up. You know, it was interesting too, I think it was my wife who brought it up too, like that title was from 20 years ago, but right now that's, you know, being woke and woke culture is such a popular part of where we're living right now. And it is interesting because, you know, when the book came out, there's something about that woke culture that I have a reaction to it, because for me it always goes back to being awake is very much a personal, spiritual experience that's happening, but it's not used that way in our culture.
Baba said, I think it was 1921 or 25, I have not come to teach but to awaken.
Right.
And then when it hits mainstream society, it gets kind of garbled. Baba also said he's come to establish a new world order, which is quite different than the world order that we hear about, you know. So they get his words and they just kind of twist them to their own interest, I guess you might say.
Yeah, I think about that a lot too. I also think about, you know, Baba said that there was only one social disease, and that's the disease of self-interest. If you cure self-interest, you cure all social diseases.
Yeah.
And it's so true, but I also look in our world right now,
Yeah.
and I think, has there ever been so much separation? I mean, just the amount of separation. That might be part of what drove me to do the book too, because believe it or not, so we're having this conversation right now. This is sort of foreign to me. You know, my own spiritual orientation is very much a personal and private one. In fact, normally when I'm down here in South Carolina, I'm across the street quietly by myself, in the barn, you know, so to really be having conversations like this outwardly is a new experience. This isn't normally my style. Chad knows more my style. It's a different kind of style. So this is different. It's exciting though. But I've always had close friendships with people. So like I think of my friendship with Bob. It spanned quite a long time, and a lot of interesting music and art conversations and things have come out of that. But for me, this is new.
And it happens, of course, a lot on the Central, like discourse meetings on Tuesday nights, you know, and people, this kind of thing, so. But you mentioned the Kali Yuga. I haven't heard many people mention the Kali Yuga. I heard about it a long time ago, the Age of Iron. So even here, I don't hear people mention it too much. But
Well, I still think of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know, and like just the industrial age, you know, the whole metaphor at the beginning of just the machine that's in operation. I'm not such a philosophical, I'm more of a practical note. I think about that a lot too. Like you think about the industrial age, everything that's almost legitimized, everything that we do for technology is to make our lives easier and to not work as much. But that's not our nature, is to just keep doing more. It's like you create all these things to really, truly be able to give you more space in life, to be able to be more self-reflective, have more time with family, to do different things. But it's not in our nature to do that. What we do is just say, oh, now we can get 5 more things done in a different way. So it's interesting. But that's what when I think of Kali Yuga, that's what I think of. I think of the industrial age being just a symptom of that.
I think it's translated as the Age of Iron, even, right? And then Bob also says, and you know, I've been reading the discourses. Somebody said, you know, I read the discourses a while back, and I'm reading them now, and it's like a different book. It's like because my awareness is different, I'm absorbing a little more of it. But that the wars and stuff are just symptoms, really. He said, you know, that's just a symptom of the separation on a individual level, and it produces this kind of need for power and control and fear and anger. And, you know, it comes out as a war.
Yeah, we can't escape each other.
And deep down, we don't want to,
Right.
I think. But there's layers and layers, you know. And for me, what I hear around me, I traveled to Chicago, and people couldn't understand why I would stay in Rogers Park. It's so scary there. We're going to get shot there, you know. And the fear that people live with when they think about doing things even.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more section to read, if that's okay, everybody. So online, I started doing some like little video clips, little audio readings from the book with a little bit of guitar on them. The one explains that, so again, this is a lot of metaphors in the book, but in the book, Colin Hartley, his job is he works for a telemarketing firm that sells grave plots. And he picks the job because he specifically thinks it's going to be good for his own spiritual transformation. There's a little bit of personal history there. I actually did have a job for about 2 hours selling grave plots. When I was 19, a buddy of mine was like, hey man, I got this great job. Like, you make like, $200 per commission on this call. And I'm like, what is it? He's like, it's working for the cemetery. He's like, plots. And he'd been doing it for a while, and he said he was making money. I'm like, all right, I'm 19 years old, so I go in for work, and the very first phone call, I don't even remember what the narrative is, but you open the phone call up with whatever the pitch was, and the person just started laughing. I was like, dude, I'm 26 years old. I have no interest in buying a grave plot. So that was I walked out. I told my buddy, I'm like, I can't do that. Somehow that stayed in my mind, and when I was writing the book, I'm like, what kind of work would this character Colin Hartley be doing? I'm like, I think I got a good idea. They say that, for every artist, everything you do is a self-portrait, so I guess there's an element of that here. So as Colin is selling these grave plots, he ends up always having these interesting and deep conversations with people. It's not as simple as the phone call and someone laugh. Like my experience. His experience is he gets on and he starts talking about death and purchasing a place for your mortal remains, and it always turns into something more. So in this moment, Colin is talking to this character named John. This is the exchange that they have. John remained silent for a moment and then responded, there's really no solution to the life-death question, right? Nothing totally satisfying. The life-death question is our ignorance of what is beyond this life. We just don't know. But seeking truth is our awakening. Or to put it another way, I think the life-death question is our sleep, and our quest for truth is our awakening. So where are you in relation to all this? Asked Colin. Oh, I'm clearly asleep, said John. I'm totally engrossed in the life-death question. All I've been thinking about is why do we live and why do we die? By the way, John, this is later in the book, John ends up calling Colin. They go back and forth, so he just calls him just to chat.
Oh.
Later in the story. Colin explained, it was related to me one time that it's important for us to first realize our ignorance before we can realize our truth. It's like saying that we must first experience our sleep before we experience waking from sleep. In a way, the sleep is part of awakening. So that's why I'm calling you, said John. I don't know how you wake up. What does that even mean? I don't know what it means to realize our ignorance, to realize our truth. These are all just words to me. But I feel like I want to know the truth. The desire to awaken is somehow in me, but I don't know how to begin. It is the only thing that happens, replied Colin. Really, everything is just waking up. Rocks waken to trees, waken to worms, waken to bees, waken to monkeys, waken to human beings, and then we waken to divinity. Then John became most sincere and asked, so where do I go from here? I'm confused. My mind is my biggest enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Colin responded, calm the mind. Find a way to calm the mind. Maybe meditation, music, painting. Focus on sacred images, repeat the names of God. Yes, calm the mind, said John. I need to calm the mind. Maybe a good starting point, replied Colin, your wish to experience that awakening and calming the mind. Second point is to remain totally present focused. Be here now. Third, you should be honest with yourself and do the best you can to love God wholeheartedly. Then John asked, How can I love God wholeheartedly if God is unseen? How can I truly love God if I don't see or understand that infinite one? Again, these are all just words to me. Colin answered, I believe that's why you begin with the wish to love God wholeheartedly. As it stands now, this is an aim, to try to love God even though God cannot be seen or understood. This is all part of developing a relationship with God. So, I have this character, there's a couple of these characters in there that I think, it's a normal part of has always been a normal part, I think, of my thinking process too. Especially early on, I think, in my own path is, how do you do that? How do you start to cultivate this relationship with the unseen? Most of my friends and family actually are atheists. It's another interesting part, I think, of this journey for me. Definitely doing things more public is, most people I know have no interest in talking about this stuff. But it is a curious thing, to look at and explore that. And what does that mean? How do you start to develop a relationship with that thing that you can't see or experience? Part of awakening process, I guess.
Sure is.
Yeah, you've been going through your own process here.
Sure have. Sure have.
I've been watching it.
Yeah?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I relate to all of that in your book.
Yeah? That's why we're friends.
Yeah, I know. You sent me this, I was like, seriously, dude?
Right.
Weren't we just talking about this? Like, I had no clue you were even writing a book about it.
Right.
No clue.
Well, also maybe evident too that sometimes you have friendships and connections with people. If this thing is personal for you, you just haven't shared it or expressed it, and had an opportunity to have that kind of exchange.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of the book. The gist of the book is there's this character, Colin Hartley, that's going through this awakening process. Things in his life are dissolving and fading, and he's got these interesting connections with all these interesting characters, and he's going through it.
Yeah, now he's becoming a counselor.
Right.
John's calling him.
Right.
The gravesite salesman.
Right.
It's awesome.
I'm happy you appreciate it. Yeah, that was from real life. I thought, well, gotta find a good job for this Colin Hartley character. This would be a good one.
All right, it's great that you really thought of it like 20 years ago with woke in the title.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird. And
Oh, man.
honestly, it really is. So when the pandemic started, everything went on lockdown. I was working from home, and my work schedule settled down a little bit because I wasn't traveling as much, working from home, and just started to feel some of the creative energy moving, as well as just really turning more inward and really thinking, what's happening? What is all of this? What does it really mean? And I thought of that. Maybe that might be part of it, is some of the stuff that you're seeing on social media and that's in the news and the daily exchanges that you're having made me think of it. And I kind of pulled that up, and I'm like, I'm going to revisit this Colin Hartley woke up thing. And I'm like, you know what? It's not that bad. I'm going to try working back into it. And was motivated.
It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
And you found a publisher too.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple different opportunities. I picked the publisher I chose because I like their covers, their art team. I think.
First things first.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Gets you first.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an artist too. I like to paint. I've done a lot of different art over the years. A lot of painting, a lot of music, and writing.
I honestly thought you designed it. When you sent it to me,
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, that's definitely something you would do.
Well, it is interesting. It was based on. I did give the design team a sketch, so it is sort of
Okay.
based on a sketch. But I asked them, to take the sketch and to flesh it out and to do. I like the idea of doing a stained glass kind of thing with it.